On the third day after my ex-husband Warren's death, the lawyer finished reading his will, which bequeathed me his entire fortune of billions, and handed me a locked diary. Inside the diary, the man who built a business empire single-handedly, aloof and noble, wrote in a restrained yet frenzied tone, "In my next life, I want to become a cat, so I can be held in Celia's arms, even if just once." I wept until my heart felt shattered, but when I opened my eyes again, I found myself back 5 years earlier. In the dimly lit bedroom, lying beside me was Warren, several years younger. The air was filled with a deathly silence. Bang! The sound of the door closing echoed through the quiet villa like a muffled sigh. I stood before the massive floor-to-ceiling window, watching the taillights of the black Bentley disappear into the night, still clutching the freshly signed divorce agreement in my hand. Warren was gone. In the 5 years of our marriage, aside from necessary occasions, he never spent a night in this villa. Even when it came to divorce, he just handed me the documents and said succinctly, "Sign it. Name your terms." Between us, it was as clean as a blank sheet of paper, without even a wrinkle of argument. He was the lofty commercial emperor, and I was the well-matched wealthy socialite. This marriage was, from the very beginning, a mutually understood transaction. He needed the support of my family to stabilize his precarious position, and I needed the status of being his wife to escape another arranged marriage by my family. We each took what we needed, regardless of feelings. I always thought that we would both be calm winners in this transaction. Until 3 days later, I received a call from the police. "Excuse me, are you Miss Celia?" "Your ex-husband, Mr. Warren, he." The voice on the other end of the line paused for a moment, carrying a hint of formal regret. The vehicle he was driving went out of control and plunged off a cliff. He passed away on the spot. With a deafening crash, my world collapsed instantly. We had already signed the divorce papers, we weren't even considered a couple anymore. So why did my heart feel like it was being tightly gripped by an invisible hand, making it hurt so much I could hardly breathe? At the funeral, I attended as his ex-wife, dressed in a black dress, standing numbly in the corner of the crowd. The guests who came and went looked at me with curiosity, sympathy, and perhaps even a touch of schadenfreude. They were probably all wondering whether this woman, who became a billionaire right after her divorce, should be crying or laughing. After the funeral, Warren's personal lawyer found me. "Miss Celia, this is the will Mr. Warren left behind during his lifetime." In black and white, it clearly stated that all his movable property, real estate, and company shares were unconditionally bequeathed to me upon his death. This was a fortune that was enough to shake the world. I held the will, my fingertips turning cold. Why did he do this? My voice was dry and hoarse. The lawyer fell silent for a moment, then took out an exquisite, vintage wooden box from his briefcase and handed it to me. "Warren said, if you asked, to give this to you. The combination is your birthday." With trembling hands, I dialed the combination lock. The box opened, revealing a thick, locked diary resting inside. I returned to the empty villa, the place we called home, sat on the edge of the bed he had never slept in, and began turning the pages of his diary, one by one. Those familiar, elegant, and powerful strokes now feel like sharp knives, slowly torturing my heart. The first page is written on the day of our engagement. I saw her today, wearing a white long dress, even more beautiful than I imagined. She doesn't know how long I've planned for this coincidental meeting. They all say I'm not good enough for her. How can a bastard dare to yearn for the moon in the sky? But they don't know that I would sacrifice everything to stand by the moon's side. She finally agreed to marry me. I know she doesn't love me, she just needs a shield. It's fine, as long as I can see her every day, that's enough. On our wedding night, I didn't even dare to touch her. She was sleeping less than half a meter away from me, and I could smell the fresh scent in her hair. I was afraid that if I got any closer, this dream would shatter. She brought me lunch today, something she made herself. Even though it was just because the housekeeper asked her to, I still felt happy. I kept the lunchbox, wanting to hold on to her scent a little longer. She says she likes cats, but she's allergic to cat fur. If I could choose in the next life, I'd want to be a cat, not some fancy breed, just a stray would be fine. That way, maybe I could be held in her arms, even if just once, even if it made her sneeze a bunch. The last page of the diary, the ink still fresh, was written the night before he got into the car accident. Celia, we're divorced now. Maybe it's for the best, now you can finally be free. Forget me, find someone you love, and live the rest of your life in happiness. Just, don't let me see it. Boom. A thunderclap roared outside the window, and a downpour unleashed its fury. I could no longer hold back, collapsing over the diary as I wept until I nearly lost consciousness. It turned out that beneath the 5-year facade of icy politeness lay a love buried so deep in his heart he never dared to speak it aloud. And what I once thought was a transaction was actually the humble plea of a lifetime. Warren, you fool. You're the biggest fool in the whole world. Tears blurred my vision, and the sharp pain in my chest made it almost impossible to breathe. In the final moments of consciousness slipping away, I had only one thought: if only everything could start over, how wonderful that would be. In the thick darkness, I felt as if I were falling into an endless abyss. I don't know how much time passed before a sudden phone ringtone jolted me awake from the chaos. I opened my eyes abruptly, greeted by a familiar, yet somehow unfamiliar, ceiling. The faint scent of sandalwood drifted through the air, a fragrance I loved. This place, it's the newlywed villa I shared with Warren? I turned my stiffened head to the side. Lying there was a man with his eyes closed, his brows slightly furrowed, as though sleeping restlessly. His handsome features, high-bridged nose, and thin lips, it was Warren. Warren, but 5 years younger. My breath instantly froze, my heart pounding wildly as if about to leap from my throat. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my phone on the bedside table. The screen lit up, the date displayed clearly, 5 years ago, on our wedding night. I was reborn? The thought exploded in my mind like a sudden clap of thunder. Wasn't I just hugging Warren's diary and crying until I fainted? How could this be? A deathly silence hung in the air. In my previous life, it was just like this. On a 2-meter-wide bed, he slept on the left, I slept on the right, with an insurmountable galaxy between us. Back then, I only felt suffocated by the oppressive nature of this marriage, never imagining the torment the man beside me was enduring. Seeing his tightly furrowed brow, my heart ached as if pierced by a needle. The diary said he didn't even dare to touch me, afraid of disturbing his dream. This time, I didn't want to let him have such a lonely dream anymore. I took a deep breath and carefully moved my body, inching closer to him bit by bit. 10 centimeters, 5 centimeters, 1 centimeter. I only stopped when my nose was almost touching the side of his face. I could clearly feel his warm breath, smell the clean, pleasant scent on him, mixed with a faint hint of alcohol. In my past life, I never knew he was this close to me. Warren. I whispered his name, my voice tinged with a barely perceptible tremor. The man in his sleep seemed to hear me, his long eyelashes fluttered slightly, then slowly opened his eyes. They were eyes deep as cold pools, now filled with astonishment and bewilderment. Seeing me so close, his pupils constricted sharply, his body instantly tensing like a startled beast. Celia? His voice was hoarse and rough, carrying the laziness of a hangover and an undeniable panic. What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? He instinctively tried to retreat but found himself already at the edge of the bed, with nowhere else to go without falling. Seeing him so cautious, as if afraid of offending me, a lump formed in my throat, and tears nearly fell from my eyes. I shook my head, and then, I did something that even I thought was bold. I reached out and gently embraced him. Through the thin pajamas, I could feel the stiffness in his body and his held breath. His body was burning hot, and his heart was beating fast, thump, thump, like drums pounding in my chest. Warren, I buried my face in the crook of his neck, my voice muffled, I'm cold. That was the least abrupt excuse I could think of. The stiffness in his body eased slightly after I said those words. After a few seconds, a pair of warm, large hands, tinged with a hint of hesitation and uncertainty, gently landed on my back. Then, they slowly tightened. A clumsy, inexperienced embrace. Yet, it made tears stream down my face instantly. Warren, this time, it's my turn to walk towards you. Even if an entire galaxy stands between us, I will swim across it, and hold you tightly. Warren waited a lifetime for this embrace, and I, too, waited a lifetime. In my past life, I was blinded by so-called socialite pride and my resistance to a business marriage, never truly seeing the sincerity of the person by my side. What I thought was mutual respect and courtesy was merely him loving me cautiously. What I perceived as cold indifference was actually his fear of being disliked, a sign of his humility. He regarded me as the moon in the sky, untouchable, only gazing from afar. But he didn't know that even the moon longed for a warm embrace. Still cold? His low, hoarse voice came from above my head, tinged with a hint of barely noticeable tension. I nuzzled into his embrace and shook my head, my voice thick with a stuffy nose. No, not cold anymore. He seemed to relax slightly, but his arms around me didn't loosen. We simply held each other quietly in the darkness, listening to the sound of each other's heartbeat, thump, 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 so clear and powerful. Warren, I suddenly spoke up, do you think you really dislike me? His body stiffened once more. I could feel the fingers resting on my back curl slightly. He remained silent for a long time, so long that I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I heard him say in a voice that was almost a sigh, no. You just don't need me. Those words felt like a blunt knife, stabbing straight into my heart. Yes, in my past life, I had always acted as if I didn't need him. I didn't need his concern, his company, or anything from him. I saw him as a smooth business partner, with clear boundaries and no interference. I personally drew a deep chasm between him and me. I need it. I looked up, trying to find his eyes in the darkness. Warren, I need you. His breath hitched. In the darkness, I couldn't see his expression, but I could feel his suddenly burning body and even more frantic heartbeat. Celia, are you drunk? He finally found his voice, yet it carried a hint of uncertainty. I shook my head, then, summoning the greatest courage of my life, I leaned over and gently kissed his lips. They were a cool, soft touch. His entire body froze, like a stone sculpture. I clumsily, awkwardly, traced the shape of his lips, imitating what I had seen on TV. This kiss held no technique, only the desperate desire to hold on to him after losing and regaining him. I don't know how long it lasted, but just as I thought he would push me away, he suddenly took control, cupping the back of my head and deepening the kiss. His kiss, much like the man himself, carried a hint of restraint yet held a madness intense enough to consume. Fiery breaths intertwined, and the temperature in the air steadily rose. This night was destined to be sleepless. When the first ray of morning sunlight filtered through the gap in the curtains, I slowly opened my eyes. A strange ache spread through my limbs, reminding me that last night's frenzy had not been a dream. I shifted slightly, but a strong arm immediately pulled me back, tightly holding me in its embrace. Sleep a little longer. The man's deep, magnetic voice rang in my ear, carrying the lazy rasp unique to early mornings, like a feather lightly brushing against the strings of my heart. I lay stiffly, not daring to move. My cheek pressed against his warm, solid chest, listening to the steady and powerful rhythm of his heartbeat, and my face uncontrollably began to flush. The butterfly effect after rebirth seemed to have hit a little too hard. I cautiously lifted my gaze, observing the man right in front of me. In his sleep, he had shed the coolness and detachment of the daytime. His brows and eyes were relaxed, his features softened, like a child who had just been given candy. Yet, those beautiful, sharply defined eyebrows were still slightly furrowed, as if he couldn't fully relax even in his dreams. My heart began to ache with a deep, gnawing pain once again. I reached out my finger, wanting to smooth away the furrow between his brows. The moment my fingertip touched his skin, his eyelashes trembled, and then his eyes flew open. We stared into each other's eyes. The air seemed to freeze instantly. His gaze shifted from initial confusion to shock upon seeing me, and then to a flicker of fear. He abruptly sat up, causing the blanket covering both of them to slip down, revealing his smoothly contoured and well-defined upper body. He looked at me, then glanced at the messy bed, his handsome face drained of color. His lips quivered, and for a long while, he couldn't utter a complete sentence. "I'm sorry." Finally, he forced the words out through gritted teeth, his voice filled with regret and self-reproach. "Last night, I drank too much. It wasn't intentional." He lowered his eyes, not daring to look at me, looking like a child who had done something wrong, waiting for judgment. I looked at him, feeling both sour and bitter inside. In our previous life, he loved me for a lifetime, yet never once dared to take the initiative to touch me. This time, even though I was the one who took the initiative, he shouldered all the blame on himself. "Warren, just how much do you love me, and how much do you dislike yourself? You have nothing to be sorry to me for." I propped myself up and hugged his slender waist from behind. "We are husband and wife, aren't we?" He jolted, turning stiffly to face me, looking at me with disbelief. "Celia, you..." "I wasn't drunk. Everything that happened last night was my choice," I said, meeting his gaze directly, each word clear and deliberate. And, I paused, noticing the faint spark in his eyes, unable to stop the corners of my mouth from curving upward. I thought, it felt pretty good. Bang! The faint spark in his eyes instantly ignited into a raging fire. The next second, I was pinned back onto the soft bed, as his scorching kisses rained down all over me. "Celia, do you realize what you're saying?" His voice was hoarse beyond recognition, his eyes filled with uncontrollable madness and possessiveness. I met his gaze without backing down. "I have no regrets." "Celia." He called my name over and over again, as if wanting to engrave these two words into his very bones and blood. The sunlight outside the window grew increasingly brilliant, illuminating the entire room in a bright glow. And Warren and I, after a lifetime of entanglement, finally welcomed the true dawn that belonged to us. This day was destined to be recorded in the annals of the corporation's history. Because their CEO, known for his calm and decisive nature, was late for the first time ever. Not only late, but he arrived just in time for lunch, making a belated appearance. Even more shocking was that the CEO did not come alone. By his side was his newlywed wife, Celia, whom everyone believed had a cold, soon-to-be-divorced relationship with him. When Warren held my hand and appeared in the CEO's office on the top floor of the corporation, an eerie silence fell over the entire secretariat. Everyone's gaze swept over our intertwined hands like searchlights. "Allow me to introduce everyone, this is my wife, Celia." Warren's voice was as cool and detached as ever, but upon closer listening, one might detect a subtle hint of showing off. After speaking, he didn't even glance at the petrified employees and directly led me into his office. With a bang, the office door closed, cutting off all prying gazes from outside. I could imagine the uproar that must be erupting out there at this moment. "You didn't have to do that," I said, slightly uncomfortable, and tried to pull my hand away. Being so intimate in public still felt a bit unnatural to me. Yet, he only held on tighter. "It's necessary." He pulls me over to his desk, pressing my shoulders to make me sit in his wide leather chair. He himself half squats before me, looking up with an incredibly bright gaze. "I want everyone to know that you are my wife, Warren." His tone carries a childlike stubbornness and sincerity. My heart stirs, and I can't help but reach out to stroke his face. His skin is flawless, smooth and fine, feeling exquisite to the touch. "What about you?" I ask him, "Aren't you going to work?" "Work is never more important than you." He replied without a second thought, then took my hand resting on his face and pressed a gentle kiss to it. "I've already had my secretary clear all my afternoon meetings. This afternoon, I'm all yours." Looking into the focus and affection in his eyes, my heart overflowed with sweetness. So, this is what it feels like to be loved so unreservedly by someone. "Sounds good," I said with a smile curling at my lips. "So, what's the plan for this afternoon?" "Whatever you want to do, I'll be with you." I thought for a moment. "I want to visit your office." In my past life, I had never set foot here. I had been completely indifferent to his work, to everything about him. In this life, I want to make up for everything he missed, bit by bit. All right. He stood up, took my hand, and began showing me around his territory, like a tour guide. This is the reception area, and over there is the lounge. There's a bed inside, so if you're tired, you can go lie down for a while. As he spoke, he opened the door to the lounge. The interior was simply furnished, a bed, a wardrobe, and an ensuite bathroom. But when I spotted the photo frame on the bedside table, my footsteps came to an abrupt halt. Inside the frame was a photo of me, taken on my 18th birthday in my family's garden, smiling brightly at the camera. I had only ever seen this photo in my own album. Where on earth did he get it? I picked up the frame, my fingertips gently tracing over the image of my beaming, younger self. You. I was just about to ask when I caught sight of a suspicious blush creeping up the roots of his ears. That. I secretly took the photo. His eyes darted away, his voice as faint as the hum of a mosquito. I went to your 18th birthday party too. You were on the swing in the garden at the time, laughing beautifully. I couldn't resist, so. His voice grew softer and softer until it was nearly inaudible. Watching his innocent yet flustered look, I felt both amused and heartache inside. So he had been paying attention to me for such a long time. In corners I never knew existed, his gaze had followed me for so long. Stalking? I deliberately put on a stern face. That's infringing on my right of portrait. I could sue you. He panicked instantly and hurried to explain, I've never shown it to anyone else. I only looked at it myself. Watching him so flustered that he was about to jump, I finally couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. Just kidding, silly. I stood on tiptoe and gently pecked his lips, which were pressed into a tight, nervous line. I really like it. He froze, as if someone had hit the pause button, staring at me motionlessly. It took several seconds for him to process what had happened. Then, he pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly as if he wanted to melt me into his very bones and blood. Celia, Celia. He murmured my name over and over, his voice trembling with the overwhelming joy of something lost and found again, tinged with disbelief. I hugged him back, burying my face in his chest, listening to his heart pounding like a drum, feeling a sense of peace and security I had never known before. It turns out, I once missed out on such a wonderful Warren. Thankfully, the heavens have given me another chance. In the afternoon, I took over Warren's CEO throne, playing on my phone without a care. Meanwhile, the dignified CEO of the group was like a submissive little wife, pulling up a chair to handle business next to me. From time to time, he would pause to peel an orange for me or hand me a cup of water, fawning over me so much that the secretaries peeking through the door almost dropped their jaws. As I enjoyed his attentive care, I scrolled through the news on my phone. Soon, a financial headline caught my eye. The bid for the West City plot is approaching, with several major players joining the fray. Could Warren's group emerge as the biggest dark horse? West City plot. Seeing those words, my heart sank heavily. I remember all too well, in my previous life, it was this very project that caused Warren to take a major fall. His competitor, a company called Tianxin Group, stole Warren's bidding documents on the eve of the bid and secured the land with a price barely 1% higher than Warren's offer. To pursue this project, Warren had invested significant manpower and resources in advance, even resorting to some shady tactics that ended up offending quite a few people. After the project failed, those people immediately joined forces to fight back, and with the Tianxin Group fueling the flames behind the scenes, Warren Group's stock price plummeted by 30% overnight, leaving it severely weakened. It took Warren a whole year to barely stabilize the situation. That was also the most difficult period for him in the 5 years of our marriage. Although he never showed any sign of it in front of me, I knew that during that time, he almost lived at the company, sleeping only 3 or 4 hours a day. Thinking of this, my heart felt as if gripped by a hand, aching faintly. In this lifetime I will never let the same thing happen again. What are you looking at? You seem completely absorbed. Warren's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. I lifted my head and saw him looking at me with concern. Warren, I put down my phone and looked at him seriously. Regarding that project in the west of the city, you must be very cautious of Tianjin Group. He was taken aback for a moment, clearly not expecting me to bring this up so abruptly. What's wrong? Have you heard something? He immediately became alert. I was at a loss for words. How could I possibly tell him that I was reborn, that I know they will steal your tender documents? I just think this company is a bit shady, I could only reply vaguely. Trust me, staying away from them is the right move. Warren looked at me, his eyes carrying a hint of curiosity. With his intelligence, he must have sensed that there was more to my words. I watched him nervously, afraid he wouldn't believe me. All right. To my surprise, he agreed almost without hesitation. I'll listen to you. He looked at me, his gaze gentle yet resolute. Whatever you say, I'll believe. At that moment, my eyes welled up with tears once more. Is this what it feels like to be trusted unconditionally? It feels wonderful. However, he changed the subject, picked up an orange from the table, and slowly peeled it, handing a segment to my lips. Since you care about me so much, shouldn't you give me some sort of reward? He leaned in very close, his warm breath brushing against my face, his eyes holding a glint of mischievous teasing. I opened my mouth to take in the sweet, tangy slice of tangerine, staring at his handsome face so near, and as if guided by some strange impulse, I extended the tip of my tongue and lightly licked his fingertip. His body suddenly stiffened, his gaze instantly turning deep and intense. In the next second, he tossed aside the tangerine in his hand, leaned down, and kissed me. This kiss was more intense than any before, filled with aggression and possessiveness. The office door had been locked at some point without my noticing. The large desk became our new battlefield. Outside the window, the sky gradually darkened. Yet the temperature inside the room only grew hotter and hotter. From that day on, I became a regular visitor to Warren Group. Warren almost wanted us to be attached at the hip, spending every waking hour together. For work, he insisted on personally driving me to the door of my studio and watching me go upstairs before he would leave. When it was time to get off work, he would wait downstairs half an hour early, always holding a bouquet of fresh roses. My small floral studio was almost overwhelmed by his roses. The staff, who were initially shocked, grew indifferent over time and now even joke with me without batting an eye. Celia, Warren is here again for his inspection. Celia, if you keep flaunting your affection like this, we're going to get diabetes. Every time this happens, I would laugh and jokingly scold them a few times, but the sweetness in my heart just can't be hidden. Being with Warren feels like living in a honey jar every single day. He remembers all my preferences, that I don't like cilantro, enjoy milk tea with 30% sugar, and like to hug a pillow when I sleep. He would clumsily try his hand at cooking just to make a bowl of tomato and egg noodles that I love, only to end up covered in flour and almost setting the kitchen on fire. He would accompany me shopping, patiently waiting as I tried on one piece of clothing after another, and then generously praise, "My wife looks beautiful in anything." That once aloof and proud business tycoon, untainted by worldly concerns, transformed into an ordinary man who could act coquettishly, get jealous, and feel insecure before me. I know that all of this is because he loves me to the core, loves me to the dust. And in his daily indulgence, I too have completely fallen. I started reciprocating his love, learning to care for him and look after him. I would wake up early to make him breakfast, even if it was just a simple sandwich. I would buy him ties and learn how to tie them for him. When he was in meetings, I would sit quietly by the side and read a book, careful not to disturb him. We were like any ordinary couple, living the simplest of lives. But we both knew that this happiness had not come easily. The bidding for the West City plot arrived as scheduled. With my reminder, Warren had made thorough preparations in advance. He deliberately spread the word that he was determined to secure the land and had prepared a sky-high bid. Then, he accidentally leaked a fake bid document. Sure enough, the Tianjin Group quickly took the bait. On the day of the bidding, Victor, the CEO of Tianjin Group, sat opposite Warren with an air of absolute confidence, his eyes filled with provocation and smugness. In my past life, it was this man who used despicable means to plunge Warren into a great crisis. I sat next to Warren, watching him coldly through the crowd. Victor, in this life, I will not give you any chance to harm Warren again. The bidding began, and the host announced the starting price. Companies took turns calling out bids, the atmosphere tense and fierce. Soon, the price was driven up to a staggering height. When it was Tianjin Group's turn, Victor raised his paddle and called out a number that was significantly higher than all previous bids. The entire room erupted in murmurs. This price had far exceeded the actual value of the land. Everyone looked at Warren, waiting to see how he would respond. Victor also stared at him provocatively, as if saying, "Go ahead, follow up. I dare you to try." However, Warren merely glanced at him indifferently before setting down his bidding paddle. "I withdraw from the bid." His voice was not loud, but it echoed clearly throughout the entire venue. The smile on Victor's face instantly froze. He looked at Warren in disbelief, his eyes filled with shock and confusion. This wasn't part of the plan at all. Shouldn't Warren have stubbornly stuck with him until the very end, only to be crushed by a slightly higher bid? How could he have given up so easily? After asking 3 times and confirming no one would raise the bid any further, the host lowered his hammer. Congratulations to Tianjin Group for successfully winning the bid for Lot A01 in the Western District. However, no applause broke out in the venue. Everyone looked at Victor as if he were a fool, their gazes filled with utter disbelief. Spending an astronomical price, enough to buy 2 plots of land, just to bid on one that was severely overvalued, what else could he be but a fool? Victor's face instantly turned beet red. He finally realized he had been tricked. He abruptly stood up, glaring at Warren with eyes that seemed ready to shoot flames. "Warren! You set me up." Warren stood up, leisurely straightened his suit, then took my hand and walked up to him. "Victor, in business as in war, all is fair. You should understand that better than I do." He leaned in slightly, speaking in a voice only the two of them could hear. "Don't think I don't know about the little tricks you've been playing behind the scenes. If you dare lay a finger on anyone of mine again, it won't just be a small dent in your finances." After speaking, he no longer looked at Victor. Holding my hand, he strode away with an air of confidence, amidst the complex gazes of the crowd. As we walked out of the bidding venue, the sunlight outside was just right. Looking at the man beside me, his tall, straight back and steady stride, I felt an unprecedented sense of security fill my heart. "How did you know he would definitely steal your fake bidding documents?" I asked curiously. "Because you reminded me," he said, stopping in his tracks, turning around, and giving my nose a little pinch. "You said he was shady, so I had someone investigate him. This Victor has huge ambitions and dirty methods, willing to do anything to win. With people like him, conventional approaches won't work, you have to fight fire with fire. So, all those arrangements you made earlier, were they all in vain?" I felt a pang of sympathy. For that project, he had been busy working for months, back and forth. "It's not a waste." He smiled, his eyes twinkling with a fox-like cunning. "The value of that land is far beyond what we can see. Victor may look proud now that he's won the bid, but the subsequent development will force him to give back everything he took, with interest." He paused for a moment before continuing, "And besides, that land was never my real target in the first place." "Not that land?" I was stunned. He took my hand and walked me to the car, opening the door for me. "My target is the Tianjin Group." I sat in the passenger seat, watching him start the car. The lines of his profile looked especially sharp in the sunlight. The project in the west of the city was just bait. The real feast has only just begun. That moment, I finally understood why people say it's better to offend the King of Hell than to offend Warren. Once his reverse scale is touched, this man transforms into the most fearsome hunter, quietly laying down an inescapable net until he completely devours his prey. And I am his only reverse scale. The collapse of Tianjin Group came faster than I imagined. The land Victor bought at a high price was soon exposed to have severe soil quality issues, making it completely unsuitable for commercial development. As soon as this news broke, Tianjin Group's stock price plummeted. Banks stopped lending to them, partners withdrew their investments, and all previously negotiated projects fell through. Amidst internal troubles and external threats, Victor was overwhelmed and desperately seeking help from others, only to be met with rejection at every turn. It was then that he realized he had unwittingly fallen into a meticulously woven net crafted by Warren. The straw that broke the camel's back was the exposure of the financial scandal within Tianjin Group. Tax evasion, fraudulent accounting, illegal misappropriation of funds. Each and every one of these offenses was enough to ensure that Victor and his management team would be locked away for life. In the end, under the forceful takeover by the Warren Group, the once arrogant Tianjin Group was completely swallowed up at a humiliating price. Meanwhile, Victor was sentenced to life imprisonment for multiple charges. On the day the news arrived, I was in the studio trimming a freshly delivered bouquet of lisianthus. Warren hugged me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder, a hint of seeking praise in his voice. "Celia, it's all taken care of." I put down the scissors in my hands, turned around, and looked at him. "Thank you for your hard work." I reached out and touched his slightly weary face. During this time, to deal with Tianjin, he had been working almost non-stop, visibly thinning out. Not hard at all. He took my hand, kissed it, and said, "I'd do anything for you willingly and gladly." Sweet talk comes so naturally to him. I find that ever since we confessed our feelings for each other, this man has completely unlocked his skill for sweet words, often leaving me blushing and flustered. "By the way," he said, as if suddenly remembering something, pulling a velvet box from his pocket and kneeling on one knee in front of me. "Celia, marry me." I was stunned. Aren't we already married?" "That's not the same." He opened the box, revealing a dazzling diamond ring that shimmered with brilliant light under the sun. "The previous wedding was too rushed and did you a great disservice. This time, I want to give you a real wedding that truly belongs only to us." The look in his eyes was one of sincerity and earnestness that I had never seen before. "I want the whole world to know that you, Celia, are my one and only true love, Warren. I want to make a lifelong commitment to you in front of everyone. Celia, would you give me another chance?" My tears fell uncontrollably. In our previous life, we had a grand wedding, but love was nowhere to be found. In this life, he aims to fill in all the regrets, one by one. I nodded vigorously and extended my hand. "I do." He excitedly slid the ring onto my ring finger, then stood up and embraced me tightly. "Celia, thank you. Thank you for being willing to look back at me. Thank you for being willing to give me a chance to love you. Thank you for being willing to become the only light in my life." Our wedding was set for a month later. The venue was chosen on a picturesque island. Warren said he wanted to bring the world's most beautiful scenery right before my eyes. During that month, I barely had to worry about a thing. From the design of the wedding dress to the decorations of the venue, and even the guest invitations, Warren personally handled everything, making sure it was all perfectly arranged. He even specially invited a world-renowned floral master to design the wedding bouquets together with me. He said, "My bride must be the happiest woman in the world." I watched him bustling around for me, my heart filled with unprecedented satisfaction and happiness. However, just a week before the wedding, the arrival of an uninvited guest shattered this tranquility. That afternoon, as I was discussing the final details with the florist in the studio, a woman dressed exquisitely and wearing heavy makeup suddenly pushed the door open and walked in. "It's Valerie. My cousin, and also the woman who had her eyes on Warren in my previous life. In my past life, she never missed a chance to speak ill of Warren in front of me, stirring up trouble between us. I heard that she tried to approach Warren behind my back, only to have him call security and kick her out directly. In this life, Because my relationship with Warren has improved by leaps and bounds, she never found an opportunity to cause trouble. I never expected her to come straight to my studio. Celia, long time no see. She walked up to me in her high heels, a hint of undisguised jealousy in her eyes. I heard you're going to have a wedding with Warren again? Congratulations. Her tone was sarcastic, making me frown. What are you doing here? I didn't want to waste words on her. Nothing, she shrugged, pretending to be relaxed. Just here to remind you not to celebrate too soon. Do you really think Warren truly loves you? She leaned in close to me, lowering her voice like a venomous snake flicking its tongue. Don't be naive. He married you only because of your family background, because your family can benefit him. How could someone like him ever have a genuine heart? You know what? Not long ago, I even saw him with another woman, acting intimate and laughing together. I looked at her and suddenly found it rather amusing. In my previous life, I might have doubted Warren a little because of her words. But this time, after seeing that diary filled with my name and experiencing his meticulous devotion toward me, how could I possibly believe such clumsy attempts to sow discord? Are you finished? I spoke calmly. Valerie was taken aback, clearly not expecting this kind of reaction from me. If you're finished, please leave. You're not welcome in my space. You don't believe me? Her eyes widened in surprise. Why should I believe someone who has been deliberately trying to ruin my marriage? I sneered. Valerie, put away those unwarranted thoughts of yours. Warren is my man, he is, and he always will be. Don't even think about it for the rest of your life. My words were like a slap across her face. Her complexion instantly turned deathly pale. Celia! Don't you dare gloat, she shrieked in a rage of humiliation, you'll be deceived by him. You're definitely going to regret this. That has nothing to do with you either. I picked up the phone and dialed security. Hello, security? This is the floral studio on the 3rd floor. There's an unwelcome person here who barged in. Could you come up and deal with it, please? Soon, 2 security guards arrived and politely escorted the still causing a scene Valerie away. The studio finally fell quiet again. The florist looked at me cautiously. Celia, are you okay? I shook my head and smiled at her. It's fine, let's continue. A small storm did not affect my mood. I just felt a bit sentimental. It turns out, when you truly have love, when you have solid footing, the gossip and rumors that could once easily hurt you can no longer stir up any waves in your heart. The wedding proceeded as scheduled. Azure seas, blue skies, white sand, and coconut groves. I wore the wedding gown designed for me by Warren himself, holding my father's arm, step by step walking toward the man waiting for me at the end of the red carpet. Today he wore a white suit, which made him look even more handsome and tall. The sunlight fell on him, casting a golden halo around him, so beautiful it was almost unreal. When my father placed my hand in his, I saw his eyes turn red. He held my hand tightly, as if afraid I might run away. Celia, you look so beautiful today. He whispered in my ear, his voice hoarse, in a tone only I could hear. I looked at him and smiled. You look very handsome today, too. The priest's solemn voice echoed in my ears. Mr. Warren, do you take Celia to be your wife, to love her, care for her, respect her, accept her, and remain faithful to her through wealth or poverty, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? I do. He answered without a moment's hesitation, his voice loud and resolute, as if declaring it to the whole world. Miss Celia, do you take Mr. Warren to be your husband? I do. Before the priest could even finish, I eagerly answered. I do, I most certainly do. In my past life, I missed you. In this life, I am willing to spend all the remaining days of my life loving you. The audience erupted in thunderous applause and blessings. Warren lifted my veil, lowered his head, and kissed me deeply. This kiss was gentle and lingering, full of the cherished feeling of something lost and regained. Sunshine, sea breeze, flowers, applause, everything became the backdrop for us. In my world, only he remained, this man I have loved through 2 lifetimes. After the wedding, Warren and I enjoyed a sweet honeymoon on the island. Like any ordinary couple, we held hands and strolled along the beach, watching the sunrise and sunset. We went diving together, exploring the wonders of the underwater world. At night, we would lie on the sand and count the stars in the sky. That was the easiest and happiest period of my life. After the honeymoon, we returned to the city. Life seemed to return to normal, but something was different. Warren remained the decisive, no-nonsense CEO, but I knew he had saved the softest place in his heart for me. He would cancel multi-million-dollar deals just to have dinner with me. He would clumsily warm my stomach when I was on my period. He would stand up for me without hesitation when I was wronged. And I have also transformed from an aloof wealthy heiress into an ordinary wife who cooks for her husband. I began learning to manage the affairs of his company, stepping in to share the load whenever he became too busy. My business talent, it seems, was fully unleashed in this life. With my help, Warren Group's operations flourished and quickly rose to become the foremost business empire in the country. Warren and I became the envied power couple of the business world. Our love story was even adapted into a film that became a sensation across the nation. 1 year later, I became pregnant. When I found out about it, Warren was in the middle of an international video conference. When I handed him the pregnancy test to see, he froze for a full half-minute. Then, under the astonished gazes of dozens of foreign executives, he excitedly jumped up from his chair, picked me up in his arms, and spun me around several times. "I'm going to be a dad. Celia, I'm going to be a dad." He laughed and shouted like a child, tears streaming from his eyes. From that day on, he treated me like a nationally protected treasure. No high heels allowed, no cold or raw foods, no staying up late. He even stopped all his work to be by my side around the clock, afraid that I might bump into something or get hurt. 10 months later, I gave birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a girl. The son takes after him, steady and calm, the daughter takes after me, lively and always smiling. Looking at the 2 little ones lying in the crib, Warren's eyes turned red again. He held my hand and kissed it over and over, his voice choked with emotion. "Celia, thank you. Thank you for giving me a complete family." I looked at him and at our children, feeling my heart filled with an overwhelming sense of happiness. In this life, I have finally obtained everything I have ever wanted: a loving partner, children, a successful career, a happy family. There are no more regrets in my life. Time flies, and before we knew it, 20 years have passed. Our children have all grown up. Our son inherited Warren's business acumen and, at a young age, has managed the group with remarkable skill, surpassing even his father's accomplishments. Our daughter inherited my artistic talent and has become a somewhat well-known floral designer. Warren and I can finally lay down all our burdens and live our own world for 2. We moved back to that island, spending our days gardening, raising fish, and gazing at the sea. Life is leisurely and carefree. Warren's hair now carries a few specks of gray, and fine lines have crept around the corners of his eyes. But the way he looks at me is still exactly like it was 20 years ago, full of doting affection and love. One afternoon, we sat side by side on the rocking chair in the yard, watching the distant blend of sea and sky. "Celia," he suddenly spoke, "do you still remember what I wrote in my diary?" I paused for a moment, then came back to my senses. "Which line?" "I want to become a cat, to be held in your arms." I looked at him and smiled. "I remember." Now, he took my hand and placed it on his chest. "I have gotten what I wished for." Yes, in this lifetime, he has always been tightly held in my arms and cherished in my heart. We were never apart again. "Warren," I leaned on his shoulder, "if there's a next life, would you still want to be a cat?" He was silent for a moment, then shook his head. "No, I wouldn't." "Why?" "Because." He turned his head, looking deeply at me, with an unyielding tenderness in his eyes. "I want to be a person, someone who can rightfully marry you, love you, and protect you. I want to tell you I love you the very first day we meet. I want to make up for the 5 years I owe you." Tears flooded my eyes once again. I held him tightly, as if wanting to press him into my very being. Warren, I love you too. If there is a next life, I will never miss you again. I will recognize you at first glance in the crowd, then rush toward you without hesitation, and tell you just how much I love you. The glow of the sunset stretched our shadows long and far. In the distance, the cries of seagulls echoed one after another. Everything felt as beautiful as a dream one never wishes to wake from. Yet I knew, this was no dream. It was the truest happiness I had gained through the waiting of 2 lifetimes. Epilogue. Late at night, in the study. Warren, with white hair and beard, trembled as he put on his reading glasses and carefully opened a brand new diary. Celia asked me today if I would want to be a cat in my next life. I said no, I'd want to be a human, so I could love her properly. Actually, I lied to her. If there really is a next life, I'd still want to be a cat. Because only then could I secretly love her for another lifetime without her ever knowing who I am. After all, being human is too painful. Loving her would drive me mad with jealousy. Seeing her smile at other men, even just out of politeness, my heart feels as if it's being sliced by a knife. This feeling is too tormenting. I'd rather be a carefree cat. Every day, lying on her lap, listening to her speak softly to me, feeling her gentle touch. As long as I can stay by her side, even if she doesn't know I love her, it's enough. Shoo, this is my secret. She mustn't know. After writing the final sentence, Warren closed the diary and carefully locked it away in the deepest part of the safe. Only after completing all of this did he return to the bedroom with peace of mind, lying down beside Celia and gently embracing her. Good night, my Celia. May you also have sweet dreams tonight.